My topic today is presentation making. My general purpose is to inform. My specific purpose is to inform how to correctly and effectively make a presentation. In order to effectively make a presentation, one must focus on their vocal patterns, their nonverbal communication, and their visual aids. Focusing on little aspects of a presentation can make the presentation improve as a whole. These presentation tips are usually useful for anyone wanting to improve their presentation form. When learning how to make a presentation, it is important to take note of one's voice. Volume goes hand in hand with one's voice. According to a pocket guide to public speaking, volume is the relative loudness of a speaker's voice while delivering a speech. It is usually the most obvious vocal element that we notice about a speaker, and with good reason. The proper volume for delivering a speech is somewhat louder than that of a normal conversation. Just how much louder depends on 3 factors. Number 1, the size of the room and the audience. Number 2, whether or not you have a microphone. Number 3, the level of background noise. Another thing that comes into play is pitch. Pitch is the range of sounds from high to low, or vice versa. Anatomy determines a person's natural pitch. A bigger or smaller voice box produces a lower or higher pitched voice. According to Peter Baker, one can help control one's voice by learning to relax one's voice. He taught this by showing a demonstration in which he tries to find the lowest hum that he can do with his voice in order to relax one's voice box. He kept doing this and was able to find different ways of pitch in order to deliver a speech. When making a presentation, it is important to take note of your speaking rate. Speaking rate is the pace at which you convey your speech. The normal rate of speech in face-to-face conversation for native speaking adults is roughly 120 to 130 and 160 to 170 words per minute. But there is no standard ideal rate. If the overall rate is too slow, the audience might get fidgety, bored, or even sleepy. If too fast, listeners will appear irritated, confused, because they can't catch what you're saying. Experts recommend using your natural conversational pace when delivering a speech, but varying the pace and vocal emphasis at different points. Focus on showing your pace during serious points and picking it up during lighter ones. When making a presentation, it is important to incorporate strategic pauses. Pauses can be important strategic elements of a speech. Pauses enhance meaning by providing a type of punctuation, emphasizing a point, drawing attention to a thought, or just allowing listeners a moment to contemplate what is being said. Focus on avoiding any unnecessary and undesirable vocal fillers such as like. These are so-called disfluencies that will make you appear unprepared and cause audience members to be distracted from your message. When making a presentation, strive for vocal variety and carefully pronounce and articulate words. Rather than operating separately, all the vocal elements described so far, volume, pitch, speaking rate, and pauses, work together to create vocal variety. The real key to effective vocal delivery is to vary all of these elements with a tone of enthusiasm. Few things distract an audience more than improper pronunciation or unclear articulation of words. Pronunciation is the correct formation of word sounds. Articulation is the clarity and forcefulness with which the sounds are made. Regardless of whether they are pronounced correctly, incorrect pronunciation and poor articulation are a large matter of habit. A common pattern of poor articulation is mumbling, slurring words together at a slow level of volume and pitch so that they're barely audible. Sometimes the problem is lazy speech. Common examples are saying "for" instead of "for" and "wanna" instead of "want to." Now that we have covered how to maximize the effectiveness of using your voice in a presentation, it's time to turn our attention to nonverbal communication. We are constantly communicating non-verbally. Research confirms the importance of body language, facial expressions, eye behavior, gestures, and general body movements during the delivery of a speech. For example, audiences are more readily persuaded by speakers who emphasize eye contact, nod at listeners, and stand with an open body position than by those who minimize the nonverbal cues. Joe Navarro emphasizes the common misconceptions in terms of nonverbal and communication. So some of these we know as crossing your arms or crossing your legs. These are kind of all have been under a misconception. So we commonly think of crossing your arms as not really being inviting, kind of telling people to back off, but it's actually a soothing mechanism. You're kind of giving yourself a hug. And people do this in movies. When they're watching movies, they're like soothing themselves. Or when you cross your legs, if someone asks you a question and then you cross your legs, this is a sign that that question made you feel threatened. Or another example could be scrunching your nose when you don't like something. It's kind of like an automatic verbal cue. Hiding your lips when something bothers you, you go. That is a common thing that humans do. So a lot of the body language goes into play even when you don't notice it. So to make a successful presentation, one must pay attention to body language. From our facial expressions, audience can gauge whether we are excited about, disenchanted by, or indifferent about our speech, and the audience to whom we are presented. Example, smiling. Smiling is a big thing for our audience. We want to see that we are excited about what we are talking about. Maintaining eye contact is also mandatory in establishing a positive relationship with your listeners. Physical gestures to fill in the gaps, such as as in illustrating the size or shape of an object. So if you want to talk about something big, you like this. If you want to talk about something small, gestures should arise from genuine emotions and should conform to your personality. And also another thing is the speaker's posture. A speaker's posture sends a definite message to the audience. Listeners perceive speakers who slouch as being sloppy, unfocused, or even weak. Strive to stand erect, but not ramrod straight. The goal should be to appear authoritative, not rigid. Now that we have covered verbal and nonverbal communication, it's time to focus on visual aids in regards to giving a presentation. So visual aids, when used correctly, can enhance a presentation rather than take away with it. This is when it's used correctly. So visual aids can help the audience process the information easier. Some people are visual learners, and when they hear you talk about it and they're seeing a graph or a picture or something like that, that helps them, connect the two and understand what really you are talking about. One thing you can use is a prop, but make sure not to have it shown until you actually need it. It can help demonstrate the speaker's point. Pictures, including photographs, can strengthen many types of presentations, including those using persuasive appeals, but avoid using shocking images that will upset viewers. Now, these are some important tips to follow in terms of visual aids. According to Shelamo Solson, do not have visual aids just for the sake of having visual aids. For example, let's say you're making a presentation about dogs. It wouldn't be that effective to just have a picture of a dog. We all know what dogs look like, so the best thing would do to have pictures of different breeds of dogs or something that can bring something else to the table besides what a dog looks like. Do not make the visual aid PowerPoint slides congested. This is a big no-no. People don't want to read paragraphs behind you while you're speaking on it. It's just distracting. They're going to be focusing on the back and not focusing on what you're saying, and it just also looks like you did not memorize what you're talking about at all. And do not pass the visual aid around while speaking. If you have a graph that's a paper and you want to pass it around, that can distract the audience a lot onto what you're saying, and the audience might be more antsy about getting their turn for the visual aid and will forget about what you have to say. So, a review of the main points. When making a presentation, it is important to be aware of one's vocal strategies. One's nonverbal communication is just as important as one's communication. Visual aids are meant to enhance one's presentation, not take away from it. And my lasting thought, a presentation is much more than the words you will speak. It deals with how you say it, how you look while you're saying it, and if you're complementing the things you are saying with good visual aids. Thank you.